Enough. One step at a time.
Okay, let's kick off this deep dive with something that feels, well, almost contradictory, doesn't it? A real picture of contrast defining this economic moment we're in.
It really is stark. On one side, you've got this extreme consumer behavior.
Right, like people actually queuing overnight, sleeping on pavements.
Just to get
Yeah.
a limited edition figurine, something collectible.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about need, clearly. It feels entirely driven by, manufactured desire, scarcity marketing at its peak.
And then you see the other side, maybe scrolling online, these influencers showing off these incredible, almost anxiety-inducing, like $6,000 pantry restocks.
Oh, I've seen those. Perfectly organized, aesthetic.
Flawless, a celebration of just pure, unadulterated excess. Kind of unnecessary, frankly. It's like a performance saying, look, reality doesn't touch me.
But here's the collision point, the real rub. All that extreme spending. It's happening while, for most people, there's this overwhelming financial anxiety.
A huge disconnect.
People are watching inflation just chew through their savings. They're worried about credit costs going up.
Yeah, and there's this general feeling of economic uncertainty just tightening its grip, seems like every week.
It feels like a kind of societal nervous breakdown almost. But it's masked, isn't it, by these shiny consumer aesthetics and this constant media push to just spend normally.
Exactly. That dissonance, that huge gap between the fragility people feel economically and this culture of really conspicuous consumption. That's our starting point for today's deep dive. So we're focusing on a movement that's growing, seems really powerful, and maybe increasingly necessary, the whole buy nothing and no buy lifestyle idea. And our source material today, it comes from some really extensive research by Marissa. She's delved deep into where this movement comes from, how it works, and maybe most importantly, its social power.
Yeah, and our mission here, for you listening, isn't just about, say, saving a few bucks or decluttering.
Though those are definitely nice side effects for sure.
Right. But the core of this is really understanding the buy nothing movement, not just as a trend, but as a form of, well, financial and psychological resistance.
Resistance. That's the key word.
Resistance against, what exactly? Well, against the very system that seems expertly designed to keep you anxious, probably indebted, definitely distracted.
And just consuming endlessly without thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the core idea, the thesis we're kind of unpacking here today, it's actually pretty powerful in its simplicity.
Which is?
That refusing to buy things you don't need isn't an act of deprivation. It's not sacrifice.
Okay.
It might just be the most powerful, most accessible act of resistance you can actually perform as an individual.
So it's how you reclaim control. Financial clarity.
And ultimately, genuine personal freedom in a world that, let's face it, kind of profits from you lacking all three of those things.
Okay, let's unpack that first big piece then. The economic and cultural backdrop. Because that's what seems to be fueling this huge shift in behavior we're seeing. We need to ground this movement in the reality, that you might be facing right now.
The timing of this surge in interest, it's absolutely critical, isn't it? You see this explosion online, searches, articles, communities popping up around no buy or buy nothing.
It's definitely not just a fleeting trend. You can see it as a direct, observable reaction. It's proportional, really, to the huge surge in financial anxiety that so many households are feeling right now, especially in developed countries.
The correlation just seems undeniable.
Yeah, people aren't just suddenly deciding extreme minimalism is like a fun new hobby. They're looking for a life raft, a practical, immediate one, because they feel like the ship's taking on water.
And you can see why they feel that urgency when you look at the numbers. The hard club numbers driving the anxiety.
Which are pretty sobering, to be honest. Terrifying is maybe the word. Our sources really dive into the specifics of this looming economic threat. It goes beyond just vague worries into actual predictions.
Right. Economists predicting, what was the number? A 93% chance of a U.S. recession in the near future.
93%. That number alone.
Yeah.
It should make anyone pause.
Right.
Right. Stop you in your tracks and rethink every spending choice.
Think about what 93% actually means. I mean, it's not a coin flip. We're talking about something that feels almost inevitable. A statistical near certainty.
And the data behind that. Things like the yield curve inversion, consumer sentiment dropping.
Contracting manufacturing sectors. These aren't just abstract indicators on a chart. They're concrete signals that the whole underlying financial structure is feeling extremely brittle.
And that brittleness, it's being felt way beyond Wall Street, isn't it? The research points out this recession anxiety isn't just theoretical for analysts.
No, not at all. Over 20 states are apparently already showing early, visible signs of economic contraction.
So the anxiety isn't just a what if. For many, it's already happening. It's affecting real jobs, local economies.
It's that lived experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Watching grocery prices shoot up while your wages just stagnate.
Or seeing credit get tighter or hiring slow down in your field.
Yeah, and when people feel that kind of seismic shift under their feet, they instinctively reach for control. And the one thing you can immediately control.
Your spending.
Yeah.
Your consumption.
Exactly.
So you've got this widespread, verified economic threat, that 93% recession chance crashing head-on with this totally unrestrained culture of excess.
That's the core dissonance Marissa highlights so well in the research. The economy's flashing these bright red warning lights.
But the consumption engine, media, social platforms, it hasn't slowed down at all. Sometimes it feels like it's speeding up.
It is surreal. One side says extreme caution. The other side, social media ads, they're just pushing the accelerator harder.
We're talking about those examples that feel almost like satire. They're so extravagant.
Like the adults lining up overnight for those collectibles. Things that'll be forgotten next quarter.
Or those influencers with the $6,000 pantry restocks.
That pantry restock example is so telling. It just exposes the whole psychological disconnect.
It's not about need, is it?
Yeah.
Nobody needs 6 kinds of artisanal salt or perfect rows of matching fancy containers for flour.
No, it's about signaling. Signaling wealth, stability, this aesthetic security.
Yeah.
Even when the economic ground beneath might be crumbling, it's pure performance and status, not practical storage.
And the point of showing that off, it's designed to make the viewer feel envy,
Inadequacy.
pretty much, which then, hopefully from the influencer's perspective, drives the viewer to buy something, anything, just to momentarily feel better, to close that perceived gap. It's a toxic cycle.
And this frantic consumption, especially when things feel fragile, it leads to a key insight in the material.
Yeah, this current dissonance feels disturbingly similar to the uneasy calm right before the 2008 Great Recession. I remember that time so clearly. It's a really good comparison. Before the crash, the media was relentlessly positive.
Oh, yeah. Housing prices only go up. Easy credit is healthy.
There was this pervasive belief that the prosperity train just had no brakes, and that aggressive optimism completely hid the massive fragility underneath, the ticking time bomb of subprime debt.
Precisely. And this moment feels similar because the dominant narrative from media, maybe even finance, still pushes the idea that you should be playing the consumption game.
That downturns happen to other people.
Yeah.
Or that, the government will just fix it easily.
Right. So the buy nothing movement, seen this way, it's like a collective refusal to just buy into that polished, comfortable story anymore.
It's proactive skepticism,
Mm-hmm.
self-protective maybe, born from actually seeing the warning signs.
And that skepticism leads us right to the personal story, the catalyst for change that really grounds these philosophical arguments in reality.
We're talking about Marissa's own origin story for this research, how her whole approach started back during the 2008 downturn.
Yeah, right after she finished her master's degree and suddenly couldn't find work in her field.
That must have been incredibly vulnerable, and it probably resonates with a lot of people listening today.
Definitely. You do everything society tells you to: invest years, take on debt for education, pour in time and energy, and then the system basically says, nope, sorry, we don't need you right now.
And it's easy to take that personally, isn't it? As a personal failing, not a systemic one.
But Marissa reframed it. And out of that really tough, frustrating time came this core realization. It's so powerful for anyone feeling helpless right now.
Which is?
You can't control the economy, but you can control your response to it.
That shift in focus. That's everything, isn't it?
It's the entire foundation of this movement. External stuff, recessions, job markets, inflation, largely out of your individual control.
But the internal stuff,
Yeah.
spending habits, financial discipline, how fast you consume things.
Totally within your sphere of influence. Her practical takeaway was learning that simplicity, frugality, they aren't punishments. They're not sacrifices.
They're survival strategies.
Incredibly effective survival strategies, yeah. And genuine sources of freedom, both emotional and financial.
That's such a crucial reframing of freedom itself. We're constantly told freedom is the ability to buy anything. Credit equals freedom.
Right, but she flips it. Freedom from needing to buy. That deep, lasting peace of mind you get when you realize you need way less to survive and thrive than you thought.
And this wasn't just a one-time thing for her during that crisis.
No, the material shows her family now intentionally does annual no-buy months.
Okay, so what does that actually look like? A no buy month. It can't be literally zero spending, surely.
No, it's about being intentional. The usual framework involves strict rules, but with necessary exceptions allowed.
Like what? Well, the rules are typically no new consumer goods, no clothes, no electronics, no books, no home decor.
No entertainment subscriptions you can pause, no takeout food, basically no discretionary spending at all.
And the exception.
Necessities. Groceries, but only replacing what you actually use up, no frantic stockpiling. Medicine, utility bills, essential home or car repairs like a broken water heater, you fix that.
Right.
And sometimes maybe pre-planned gifts like for a wedding or a birthday that falls in that month.
There's like an annual financial cleanse, forces you to scrutinize every single transaction.
Is this truly necessary for survival? Or is it just a cultural habit, a convenience, something I can safely skip? It makes sure every dollar spent is intentional, not just compulsive.
And by doing it annually, as a family, they're essentially practicing resilience.
Exactly. They're building the muscle memory they might need if that 93% recession chance actually hits, turning austerity from a crisis reaction into a voluntary, empowering discipline.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Moving from the big picture economy to the more targeted psychological manipulation that Marissa's research brings up.
Yeah, this is crucial. The source material argues that this buy-nothing approach is particularly vital for women.
Why women specifically?
Because, the argument goes, they've been the strategic prime targets of manipulative marketing for decades.
Okay, how so?
It's about defining the target effectively. Historically, and now supercharged in the digital age, industries figured out they can't just sell products straight, they have to sell insecurity first.
Sell insecurity.
Yeah, the research is really clear on this. Industries profit by systematically creating and then reinforcing the idea that women are just never fundamentally enough.
You're never pretty enough, stylish enough.
Successful enough, young enough, whatever the current metric is, it's a constantly moving target.
A perpetual, unattainable goalpost. So you buy the thing, the cream, the outfit, the course that promises to fix the perceived inadequacy.
And immediately the next ad pops up telling you, oh, but now you need this different, better product to achieve this other, slightly different, equally elusive perfection.
It sounds exhausting,
And
overwhelming.
it's psychologically damaging. By design.
And the methods now, they go way beyond old school magazine ads, right?
Oh, far beyond. The material details some genuinely disturbing methods of emotional exploitation in the digital world. This is where algorithms become the puppet masters, basically monitoring our moments of self-critique.
Okay, let's get into that specific, chilling example the research mentions about Facebook and teenage girls, because that really illustrates this algorithmic exploitation perfectly.
It's a really powerful example of how platforms don't just track what you like, they actively exploit what you fear or what you reject about yourself.
So what did Facebook reportedly do?
The material notes they monitored teenage girls deleting selfies. Now, why is that moment, the act of deleting a selfie, so valuable to an advertiser?
Because it signals insecurity, self-doubt.
Exactly. Peak emotional vulnerability. The deletion signals a perceived flaw and inadequacy felt in that precise moment.
And they weaponize that feeling.
Precisely. The algorithm isn't just selling a product. It's selling the solution to the emotional pain point it just observed and categorized.
Wow.
They essentially wait for that flicker of self-doubt, that deletion, and then immediately trigger targeted ads. Beauty products, confidence-boosting apps, whatever fits. It turns self-doubt into a marketable event. The algorithm is literally programmed. Find where they hurt, then offer a paid bandage. The implication is huge. This is happening constantly. At scale, it's not just about what you click or search for.
About what you don't click, what you delete, how long you maybe pause looking at someone else's photo.
Yes, and the precise emotional state those subtle actions imply. By understanding the timing and nature of your self-critique, they can perfectly insert a product as the psychological bomb.
So the refusal to buy in that context becomes what? A refusal to be psychologically measured and manipulated.
Exactly. Refusing to participate in that cycle of being found wanting just so they can sell you something. And all this relentless psychological pressure, it feeds right into another concept the research highlights, the normalization of debt.
Yeah, this fascinating and, frankly, deeply disturbing idea of cute debt. Cute debt. It sounds harmless, maybe even fun. What does it actually mean?
It's a term used to describe how financial irresponsibility gets normalized, especially for younger people, and often targeting women again, who are major consumers in areas like fashion and aesthetics.
How does it work?
It actively portrays using credit, especially for instant gratification stuff like fast fashion, weekend trips, trendy home items, not as a financial risk, but as fun, empowering even, a necessary part of expressing your style or confidence.
So instead of seeing credit card debt or those buy now, pay later plans as potential traps,
They get packaged as lifestyle accessories. They make the interest payments, the fees, seem like the normal, acceptable cost of living your best life right now, whether you can actually afford it long term or not.
and buy now, pay later, BNPL, must be rocket fuel for this cute debt idea.
Oh, it's the perfect engine. It drastically lowers the initial barrier to purchase. You don't see the full $300 price tag for that impulse buy. You just see 4 easy payments of $75.
It shifts the focus from planning and discipline to just immediate emotional payoff.
Right, you see something, you want it, you use BNPL. The temporary high of getting the item is amplified by this feeling that you're seizing the day, staying trendy, being savvy, by spreading the cost.
But the term itself, cute debt, it deliberately minimizes the actual danger, doesn't it?
Completely. The late fees pile up, you can't build an emergency fund because you're constantly juggling these small debts.
Mm.
Those consequences are never portrayed as cute.
Debt is one of the main ways people get kept anxious, stressed, and basically chained to the consumption treadmill just to stay afloat.
And this targeting, especially women, isn't random. It's incredibly strategic. It links back to who often controls the household finances.
Ah, right. The research explains that women frequently act as the gatekeepers for family spending.
Yeah, in about 60% of couples, according to the research, women manage the day-to-day household budgets. They're the key point of access to the family's spending power.
So if marketers can bypass their critical thinking,
By appealing directly to emotional vulnerability or the desire for status or that fear of being seen as less than.
they unlock access to a much bigger pool of money, the whole family's budget. The stakes are way higher than just one person's shopping habits.
Absolutely. So when we frame the buy nothing rebellion in this specific light, it's not just about saving money for yourself.
It becomes an act of protection.
It's entirely an act of protection, shielding not just yourself from that constant psychological prodding and manipulation.
But shielding your whole family from the financial harm and instability that comes with it.
Yeah. If you stop playing the never enough game, you insulate your entire financial unit from the stress engineered by consumer culture. It's a profound defensive move, building resilience.
It turns the decision not to buy that new dress or not to upgrade a phone that still works fine into something powerful, an ethical boundary.
It's like saying, my time, my peace of mind, my family's resources, they're too valuable to be dictated by your algorithm or your marketing campaign. Okay, so moving beyond the psychological manipulation, the material also points out how the system itself is kind of rigged against us, the consumers.
Right.
Through the very nature and design of the goods we buy, these are the systemic traps designed to make sure consumption is perpetual, almost regardless of your personal willpower. Right, let's start with one that feels so common now we barely question it. The purposeful degradation of goods. Planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence. It's the deliberate design of stuff, appliances, clothes, electronics especially, to degrade, become incompatible, or just fail faster than they technically need to.
It's an engineered lifespan, designed purely to maximize how often we have to replace things.
And you see it everywhere, often in really sneaky proprietary ways.
Like phone batteries, you can't replace yourself because they're glued in. So the whole expensive device is useless when the battery dies.
Exactly. Or washing machines with one specific computerized part that always seems to fail just after the warranty expires, even though the main mechanical parts are fine.
And the cost to repair is almost as much as buying a new one. That's the strategy. Ensure perpetual consumption. The system needs you to replace perfectly functional items sooner than necessary. It's not just annoying. It feels like it actively destroys consumer trust.
It does. You pay a premium price for something, and it fails prematurely due to a design choice. You realize the manufacturer's loyalty isn't to you, the customer. It's solely to their next sale, their replacement revenue cycle.
It feels fundamentally insulting, actually.
Yeah.
You're paying top dollar for goods you suspect are compromised from the start, like you're buying a temporary lease, not a durable asset.
And layering onto that insult is the hidden price hike we're all feeling, the one that often slips under the radar of basic inflation numbers.
You mean shrinkflation?
Exactly, shrinkflation, which is particularly insidious because it avoids raising the actual sticker price, which people notice immediately.
So shrinkflation is when they quietly reduce the quantity or the size or the weight of a product.
While keeping the price the same, or sometimes even nudging it up slightly. You are literally paying the same amount or more for less product. Sometimes even lower quality ingredients sneak in too.
The classic examples are always in the grocery store, aren't they? The bag of crisps that seems to be mostly air now.
Or the ice cream container that used to be a standard size, but now it's slightly smaller, often with a flashy new label designed to distract you.
The price looks familiar, but your value for money has tanked, and usually with zero communication about it.
So if you put planned obsolescence and shrinkflation together, you see a pretty masterful system.
Yeah, on one side, the durable goods break faster planned obsolescence.
And on the other side, the consumables give you less for your money, shrinkflation,
The end result. The system makes sure you must buy more stuff more often.
while simultaneously insulting your intelligence by hiding the true cost and often diminishing the quality you receive.
So the buy nothing movement sees these forces planned obsolescence, shrinkflation not as just market quirks, but as intentional financial sabotage.
Pretty much. And by refusing to play the endless replacement game, they're rejecting that erosion of quality and the hidden tax of getting less.
Which leads us neatly into the ethical side of spending, doesn't it?
Perfectly. Once you become aware of this systemic sabotage, mindful spending stops being just a tactical money-saving trick.
It becomes a moral choice, a practical one.
Both.
Yeah.
You can't really claim ignorance anymore. You know the game is rigged against you.
The source material brings in that fantastic foundational quote here from Vicki Robbins' book, Your Money or Your Life. Oh, such a powerful one. How you spend your money is how you vote on what exists in this world. That quote. It's like a whole philosophy packed into one sentence.
It really is. It frames every single purchase, every transaction as a decision, a political, moral, ethical decision about what you want to see more of in the world.
So when you buy that cheap fast fashion item designed to fall apart,
You're casting a vote with your money for waste, for planned obsolescence, for environmental damage, often for poor labor conditions too.
but the flip side, within the buy nothing movement, is that mindful spending, or maybe more importantly, mindful refusal to spend, is a vote for something better.
Exactly. It's an endorsement, a vote for sustainability, for quality craftsmanship that actually defies obsolescence, for authenticity over mass-produced disposability.
So if you choose to buy less overall, but when you do buy, you prioritize durability or quality or maybe something secondhand that's already out there.
You are actively voting against those systemic traps set by the consumption machine. It becomes an exercise in aligning your spending with your values, ethical alignment, and resource responsibility. So the real question for you, the listener, becomes, is my spending supporting the system that's making me anxious and indebted? Or am I supporting things that promote durability, trust, and maybe a clearer conscience? And the Buy Nothing participant deliberately chooses the latter. They opt out of the system that demands they keep funding their own insecurity, both financially and psychologically.
Now, the impact of this buy nothing idea goes way beyond just your own bank account, right? It reaches straight into the next generation.
Oh, absolutely. We have to talk about the family dimension. And the really profound, sometimes exhausting responsibility parents have in trying to teach kids contentment over consumption.
This feels like maybe the hardest battleground for this whole resistance movement.
Arguably, yes, because kids, almost from birth, are bombarded with sophisticated marketing. On TV, streaming, games, even just comparing stuff in the schoolyard.
Parents aren't just fighting their own ingrained habits. They're up against an entire media ecosystem built to constantly tell children they're lacking something, that they need the next thing.
You need a really strong, really deliberate counter-narrative at home. Otherwise, kids' self-worth gets completely tangled up in what they own.
Yeah, if social status hinges on the latest gadget or the trendiest sneakers or a specific brand, then choosing not to buy feels like social suicide to a kid, not freedom.
So the effort to teach contentment has to be intentional, deeply rooted, constantly reinforced.
And that intentionality, it's shown really well by a specific exercise Marissa mentions in her work, something she adapted from a financial independence book.
Yeah, the happiness audit. It's a practical tool that really helps cut through all the consumer noise.
Okay, walk us through that. How does the happiness audit work? Because it sounds like it gets right to the core of what actually brings fulfillment versus just temporary shine.
The idea is super simple, which is why it works for all ages. Each person in the family sits down, takes some time, and lists 10 things that genuinely make them happy.
Genuinely happy, not things they think should make them happy or things they just got.
Exactly. It requires real reflection. What activities, moments, relationships bring true, repeatable joy, not just the fleeting buzz of a new purchase.
I can imagine, maybe at first, kids, and probably adults too, might default to listing material things, the new video game, the planned holiday, the favorite toy.
Often, yeah. And that's okay. It's part of the process. The real power comes when you push past that initial acquisition thrill.
How do you do that?
You ask clarifying questions. Is it the item itself that makes you happy or what you do with the item? So a kid might list, say, a trampoline.
Okay. The parent helps them dig deeper. Is it the object, the trampoline? Or is it the feeling of jumping high with your sister, with the sun on your face? So refining it down to the actual experience or feeling.
Precisely. Getting to the core of the joy.
So what was the big takeaway when Marissa's family did this happiness audit? What did they find?
The finding was pretty profound, and it lines up perfectly with the buy-nothing philosophy. Almost none of the final refined items on their lists were material goods or possessions.
Really? So they weren't listing expensive toys or cars or the latest game console?
Nope. Instead, they named experiences, relational activities.
Like what specifically?
Things like family movie nights, everyone snuggled under one big blanket, spontaneous trips to the library to just browse and pick out books.
Simple things.
Yeah, baking cookies together, even if it makes a huge mess. Or just spending quiet time watching animals outside, birds at the feeder, squirrels chasing each other, accessible, often zero-cost, high-value experiences. Those were the things that defined contentment for them.
That audit feels like powerful personal proof against the default societal assumption that happiness comes from buying stuff.
It really undermines it. True happiness, lasting satisfaction, genuine memories. It's almost always relational, experiential, or just tied to being present in simple moments.
And the painful irony, which parents probably realize doing this,
Is that the time and energy we spend chasing the material things that don't actually make the top 10 list.
are the very things that rob us of the time needed for the non-material things that do bring joy.
Exactly. You work those extra hours to pay for the gadget or service the cute debt, and that means you miss the spontaneous movie night or the chance to just sit and watch the birds.
So the audit is vital because it gives kids and adults an internal benchmark for genuine satisfaction, something to measure consumer pressures against.
Yeah, they can mentally check that new ad against their personal list of 10 happy things and see the disconnect. Will this advertised thing actually bring me that kind of joy? Usually the answer is no.
And that need to build that internal benchmark, that defense mechanism, it leads to a really profound warning the research stresses about sufficiency. This might be the single most important lesson for parents in this whole movement. It's a quote worth remembering. If we don't teach our children what enough looks like, the world will teach them that whatever they have is never enough. Wow, that hits hard. It defines the entire consumer world as being based on creating a feeling of deficit. It only profits if you feel inadequate.
Exactly. If the concept of sufficiency, that point where you can genuinely say, I have what I need, I am content, isn't explicitly taught and modeled.
The child is just left constantly chasing the next thing, never feeling settled or stable.
Because the external messaging system is designed to keep accelerating desire, always just beyond their grasp. So the buy nothing movement in this context is really about redefining enough.
Defining it not by inventory or accumulation,
But in terms of time, relationships, health, peace of mind, those become the metrics of wealth.
it's teaching them that being present, being connected, having strong relationships, that's infinitely more valuable than any possession could ever be. Okay, let's try and bring this all together now. We've covered the big economic pressures driving this,
The manipulative psychological tactics it resists,
the systemic flaws like planned obsolescence and shrinkflation.
and the critical role of family in teaching contentment.
So this final section of our deep dive, it's really about the philosophical shift this whole movement represents. It's about redefining strength, isn't it?
That's the core philosophical takeaway Marissa keeps coming back to, saying no to unnecessary consumption. That's presented as an act of strength. Active strength, not passive deprivation.
That's a really important distinction. Because usually we think of frugality as, making do, tightening the belt, going without, kind of negative.
Right, but this movement reframes refusal as an active, empowering choice, a declaration of independence from a system you now recognize as manipulative.
So you're not seen as giving something up. You're strategically gaining something back. And what you're gaining back is fundamental. Your dignity and your agency within this all-consuming culture. Agency meaning your power to choose.
Yeah. When you stop buying stuff just because an algorithm nudged you or a corporation told you it would make you happy, you reclaim your basic decision-making power.
You're asserting that your desires come from within, aligned with your actual values, not engineered from the outside for someone else's profit.
That dignity comes from realizing you're not just a walking wallet, a data point whose self-doubt is a marketable asset.
You're an autonomous person. Your energy, your money, they belong to you, not to the consumption machine designed to drain them.
Yeah.
And preserving that agency, that's crucial because it immediately frees up energy and resources. The material is clear on this. Saying no to the noise, the clutter, the constant demands allows you to say a much more powerful, intentional yes to what really matters.
And what truly matters, according to this philosophy and kind of proven by that happiness audit exercise,
Is universal, non-material.
cultivating relationships, prioritizing health, both physical and mental, making space for creativity, finding genuine peace of mind.
So if you're not spending your weekends at the mall or scrolling endlessly through online sales or organizing clutter,
You suddenly have actual time for real connection with your partner, your kids, your friends.
and if you're not working extra shifts just to pay off cute debt,
You have the mental bandwidth, the peace, the energy to pursue a hobby you love, learn something new, focus on your well-being. The refusal to buy becomes an economic act that yields these huge psychological and even spiritual returns.
it really does frame it as a kind of quiet revolution, doesn't it? That's how the source material sums it up, a movement fueled by countless individual decisions adding up.
Yeah, the buy-nothing lifestyle ends up serving two critical functions at once. First, it's a deep personal detox, clearing out physical clutter, financial debt, mental noise.
And second,
It acts as a quiet social revolution, a pushing back against a culture that has falsely equated a person's worth with how much stuff they own, how much wealth they accumulate, how much they consume.
and the idea is when enough people just stop playing that endless acquisition game,
The market has to start shifting eventually. The quiet revolution gains power simply by demonstrating, person by person, family by family, that a rich, fulfilling, high-agency life doesn't actually require constant, accelerated consumption.
it's the most powerful financial vote you can cast, maybe.
Yep.
And you cast it just by staying home, staying focused, staying financially free.
Pretty much. Resisting the urge, reclaiming your time and attention.
Hashtag, tag, outro. So this deep dive, drawing on Marissa's research, has really been about exploring resistance, much more than just budgeting tips. Let's just quickly recap the four main areas of resistance we touched on today, because it shows how layered this movement really is. Okay, first, we grounded it in the economic context. That measurable rise in financial anxiety, the stark recession warnings, the corporate manipulation, all driving people to rethink consumption as a basic survival mechanism. Right. Second, we highlighted that specific angle of feminine resistance, pushing back against the strategic targeting of women through emotional exploitation, those invasive algorithms, and the whole normalization of cute debt. Refusing that is an act of protection. Third, we looked at the systemic issues, planned obsolescence and shrinkflation, how they erode trust, waste resources, force perpetual buying, and how ethical spending or refusing to spend becomes a conscious vote against that rigged system. And finally, we talked about parenting with intention, the crucial need to teach kids contentment, using tools like the happiness audit to show that true joy comes from non-material experiences, not just possessions. Redefining enough.
Taken together, this whole movement offers a different lens, a way of view consumption not as just this unavoidable daily grind, but as a continuous series of strategic choices. Choices about your time, your peace, and ultimately, your freedom. So we want to leave you with this final thought to consider, building on that powerful Vicki Robin quote. If every single purchase you make is a vote, and we know the system is deliberately designed to accelerate consumption through things like planned obsolescence and psychological manipulation, how often are you truly voting for your own freedom, financial and psychological, rather than just voting to prop up the system that keeps you feeling bound? And maybe more importantly, what non-material yes, what greater peace, better health, deeper creative engagement, or stronger relationship will your next refusal to buy unnecessarily allow you to embrace instead? What freedom will that no unlock?
Welcome to the debate. Today we are looking into Marissa's core thesis on the Buy Nothing movement, which has really been gaining traction. She argues quite compellingly, I think, that this conscious reduction in consumption, it goes beyond just simple budgeting. It's presented as a profound form of financial and psychological resistance against systems designed to keep us anxious and dependent.
Right. And that leads us to the central question we're grappling with today, based on this material. Is this growing buy nothing movement primarily, as you might see it, a strategic, moral act of resistance and liberation about reclaiming agency? Or is it actually, perhaps more fundamentally, an economic reaction, a survival strategy driven by, let's face it, escalating financial necessity and some pretty questionable corporate practices?
Exactly. And I'll be arguing that this is fundamentally an act of resistance, a conscious, almost philosophical choice, driven by a desire for sovereignty over one's life and choices.
And I'll be arguing the other side. That, well, sure, the movement carries an ethical dimension. Its recent surge and widespread adoption, well, they're primarily a necessary defensive reaction, a response to some pretty severe systemic economic pressures, and frankly, a continuous, deliberate undermining of consumer trust and security. It's more like fiscal self-preservation in what feels like a rigged environment.
Okay, well, let me start then. The power of the Buy Nothing movement, as I interpret it from the material, really lies squarely in its ability to preserve one's dignity and agency. It's a fundamental refusal, right? A refusal to participate in these consumer systems that are, let's be honest, actively designed to perpetuate inadequacy. That whole cycle that convinces us we're perpetually lacking something, never stylish enough or pretty enough or young enough.
And this isn't about deprivation, not really. It's a strategic withdrawal of consent. It's a radical redirection of energy, and yes, capital. When you say no to these manufactured needs, you're effectively saying yes to things that actually yield true value. Time for relationships, better health, creativity, just inner peace. This practice frames conscious frugality not as hardship, but as a source of profound freedom. And it aligns with that powerful moral idea that, how you spend your money is how you vote on what exists in this world. So mindful spending becomes this ethical choice, and the movement itself a kind of quiet social revolution based on realigning values.
Okay, I come at it from a different angle, though. While those psychological and ethical points you raise are, yes, undoubtedly present for some people, we just cannot ignore the overwhelming economic context that seems to be forcing these choices for many. The surge in no-buy or low-buy lifestyles, it correlates far too directly with widespread financial anxiety and escalating external economic threats, for this to be purely some kind of philosophical luxury enjoyed by the comfortable.
Well, the correlation doesn't necessarily prove causation is solely economic.
But look at the data Marissa herself presents. Economists predicting a staggering, 93% chance of a U.S. recession, with many states already showing signs of significant economic contraction. I mean, that context really frames the movement less as a philosophical exercise and more as a necessary survival strategy. It's a rational response to a system that continuously, and I'd argue actively, exploits consumers through strategic corporate, malice. I'm talking specifically about practices like planned obsolescence, goods deliberately designed to fail faster, and shrinkflation, where you get less product for the same or even more money. The movement feels driven by the immediate need for financial discipline when these external forces and corporate manipulations are eroding people's security day by day.
Okay, that's a fair point about the economic pressures. That's an excellent delineation of this core tension, conscious choice versus economic compulsion. So let's dig into the movement's origins, which you seem to suggest are rooted entirely in that economic necessity.
Well, yeah. I'm just not convinced that the current momentum is primarily this act of liberation when, if you look at the source material, its roots seem to suggest pure economic defense. Marissa actually noted that the initial spark for her own first no-buy year happened during the 2008 downturn. Why? Because she simply couldn't find work in her field despite having an advanced degree. Her reflection, and I think this is key, was you can't control the economy, but you can control your response to it. That fundamentally positions the start of it as a reaction to severe economic necessity. When the job market collapses, controlling your spending is one of the few levers you have left. That sounds like a pragmatic reaction to joblessness and instability, not some philosophical decision born out of surplus or abstract ethical thinking.
That's an interesting point, And I absolutely concede that the pragmatic necessity of frugality, especially facing the 2008 recession, provided that initial impetus for her. But I think true liberation lies in the ability to turn that moment of panic or necessity into something lasting, into a kind of philosophical fortress that can withstand future economic shocks. The conscious continuation and the expansion of this practice that transforms the act entirely, doesn't it? It moves beyond just mere budgetary control toward a deliberate reclaiming of control, clarity, and a deeper psychological freedom.
You think it transforms for everyone?
Well, look at the evidence of transformation presented. The movement is sustained now by families and individuals who engage in these conscious, value-based decisions. Think about the family dimension she talks about. Parents teaching children contentment over consumption, like making a list of 10 non-material things that bring genuine happiness. Now, that exercise isn't driven by the immediate necessity of a recession years later. That feels like a profound philosophical choice to actively reject the consumer culture's core message, that your worth is somehow tied to what you buy and accumulate. This intentional, proactive rejection of that cultural script, that is resistance. And it suggests the enduring practice is driven more by choice now, not just compulsion.
The family exercise is admirable, no doubt. But doesn't it also say something about our current reality that this level of defensive parenting feels so essential? It sounds like a necessary defense against a really powerful cultural machine, one that actively and aggressively targets the vulnerability of individuals, including children, precisely to ensure perpetual consumption. So the very necessity you're framing as philosophical might actually be a mandatory defense against a manipulative system.
But that defense is the resistance I'm talking about. And it becomes even clearer when we consider who is often targeted most aggressively. I see why you emphasize necessity, but let me offer a different lens here, focusing specifically on those manipulative marketing tactics.
Okay.
Women particularly have historically been prime targets for marketing designed specifically to create deep insecurity. Industries make huge profits by convincing women they need the next serum, the 5th pair of identical shoes, the latest anti-aging gimmick, constantly implying they're never quite beautiful enough or stylish enough or young enough.
Right. That's a known tactic.
Exactly. So the Buy Nothing movement, viewed in that context, becomes a conscious, strategic act of protection. It's about shielding oneself and perhaps one's family from this relentless psychological manipulation. And since women often manage household budgets, the figure mentioned is around 60% of couples, this strategic rejection of the marketing system is actually a highly effective form of resistance. It offers a massive psychological dividend. By refusing to buy the unnecessary thing that was pushed by manufactured desire, the consumer isn't just saving money. They're actively defanging the emotional vulnerability that the market was trying to exploit. They're reclaiming their sense of self-worth outside of capitalist validation. That feels like liberation to me.
That's a compelling point about the targeting and the potential for psychological freedom. But I think you might be underestimating the sheer depth of the manipulation, which I'd argue often compromises agency so completely that, well, abstinence becomes almost unavoidable.
How so?
The exploitation is just so profound and systemic now that avoidance becomes less about conscious resistance and more about, frankly, unavoidable self-preservation against what feels like fraud. We're talking about highly sophisticated AI-driven algorithms that exploit emotional vulnerability, like the example given of Facebook monitoring teenage girls who delete selfies, only to then trigger targeted beauty ads preying on that exact insecurity. That's incredibly insidious. And then you have cultural trends like cute debt, which deliberately normalize financial irresponsibility, especially among younger consumers, framing debt almost as a quirky rite of passage instead of the destructive financial trap it often is.
Okay, those are disturbing examples.
Right. So when industries are strategically rigged like this to exploit fundamental emotional weaknesses and ensure perpetual consumption, often using goods deliberately degraded by practices like planned obsolescence, the consumer's only truly rational response might just be total material withdrawal. This strong defensive posture against what feels like a rigged game, it seems less like a freely chosen philosophical stance and more like inevitable financial and psychological self-preservation,
forced by an overwhelming systemic attack.
I certainly acknowledge the severity of that systematic manipulation. It's significant. But even when facing such profound exploitation, I still believe the power lies in the philosophical strength of consciously saying no. That refusal is what preserves dignity, and it fosters a new framework for self-worth entirely separate from consumption. By refusing to buy into it, literally, one is voting against a culture that equates worth with wealth.
A vote, maybe, but is it the primary driver for most?
Well, the decision to focus on quality, on longevity, on authenticity over just waste, that feels like a proactive moral choice. It supports sustainable systems, rejects the culture of disposability. The consumer is consciously seeking alternatives, maybe community sharing, maybe fewer but higher quality, ethically made goods. The system might be deeply flawed, yes, designed to exploit, but the thoughtful, intentional response, that is chosen. It's ethical and it's actively liberating. It provides a kind of psychological sovereignty, which in itself is a powerful form of financial resilience.
I understand the powerful ethical component you're arguing for. I really do. But I keep coming back to the fundamental economic insult that necessitates so much of this behavior for so many people right now. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the primary driver for the current surge for the majority of participants is this deep philosophical vote. The evidence seems to point back again and again to practical economics and blatant corporate malpractice.
But malpractice requires a response, and the nature of that response matters.
Absolutely. Look, planned obsolescence and shrinkflation, these aren't abstract philosophical issues. They are systematic corporate insults. They hit consumers' intelligence and their wallets directly. They actively undermine quality of life and financial security. When goods are deliberately designed to fail quickly, or when you're systematically given less product for the same price, the decision to avoid those purchases feels overwhelmingly driven by a rational, practical reaction to poor value and inflated cost. It feels less like a deep ethical reckoning with one's worth and more like sheer necessity when the basic quality and reliability of consumer goods are being eroded by design. It forces fiscal prudence just to maintain a baseline standard of living for many.
We certainly seem to agree that corporate malpractice is a significant factor here. It's driving people away from traditional consumption patterns. The deliberate engineering of poor quality absolutely forces some kind of response.
Exactly. And when you add in that wider context of economic fragility, we talked about the high recession chance, the job market volatility, the necessity to just shore up one's personal finances, to build some kind of financial buffer, that surely outweighs the purely philosophical argument for a large number of people involved. People are actively looking for pragmatic survival strategies, and total withdrawal or near withdrawal is simply the most comprehensive defense available to them.
Conversely, though, I believe the enduring strength, the stickiness of the movement lies precisely in the fact that it often transforms an initial moment of necessity into a lasting philosophical framework. It moves from, okay, necessary budgeting into a deep, conscious commitment to reclaiming agency, defining one's own values, and, crucially, redirecting attention toward non-material goods, relationships, creativity, experiences. It's that ability to intentionally choose contentment with enough. That's what elevates it beyond just an economic reaction. It becomes a true act of ongoing resistance.
And I still maintain that the underlying and, frankly, escalating economic anxieties combined with that targeted corporate exploitation, the mechanics of planned obsolescence, shrinkflation, those are the primary catalysts forcing consumers into what is fundamentally a reactive survival stance right now. It's undeniably a powerful movement, but I see it as born primarily of pragmatic fiscal defense against a system that has demonstrably lost consumers' trust.
Well, ultimately, the source material does seem to illuminate that the movement functions, perhaps, on both levels simultaneously. It is a rational response to economic necessity for many, certainly. But for others, perhaps even for many who start out of necessity, that experience transforms into a potent exercise of agency and becomes an enduring ethical resistance, a lasting ethical framework.
And understanding that complex duality, that interplay between necessity and agency, I think it deepens our appreciation for why the movement is surging right now. You have the necessity created by a fragile economy meeting this perhaps latent philosophical desire for psychological sovereignty and meaning beyond consumption.
Indeed. Well, thank you for this rigorous discussion. It really highlights the complex drivers behind the Buy Nothing movement. There is certainly much more to explore in how these kinds of financial disciplines might reshape our values over time.
Thank you. It's a fascinating intersection of economics and psychology.